Welcome back to the shop, my friends. Steve here at SKS Props, and in today's build video, we're going to be checking out some brand new chrome paint. Several weeks ago, the Alsa company reached out and asked if I would like to try out some of their chrome paints. And being an artist, I love trying out new paints, new mediums, and new tools. So I, of course, said yes. And of course, the next question comes up, what am I going to paint chrome? And luckily, at that point in time, I was playing a ton of Crimson Desert. So I figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and kill a couple of birds with one stone. First off being, I get to try out a new paint. Secondly being, I'm playing Crimson Desert. Let's go ahead and make something from it. And thirdly, I get to now try to hone some more of my 3D modeling skills and techniques. So I decided to make Brother Matthias' helmet from Crimson Desert. Now, luckily for me, this is the type of helmet that's very similar to the Templar helmet that I made out of foam years ago. So I was already fairly familiar with the overall dimensions of what it would need to be. I would just need to create that digitally. Now, the good and the bad to this video is that a couple of weeks ago, my hard drive completely crashed and I lost everything. Luckily for me, 4 days before that, I uploaded everything to an external hard drive, including all of the footage and the files for this helmet, which is lucky for you. That means that I'm going to have a free version of this available that you can download and print off at home. And if you do appreciate me doing these types of things for free, by all means, feel free to like the video, subscribe, and be sure to share it with your friends and family. So in this video, I'm going to show you what it takes to finish off a 3D print, add some really cool chrome paints, and make a cosplay helmet look like metal. First, I had to create the model, and I did that in a program called Nomad. I could then export that over to Bamboo Studio, where it was printed on my Bamboo H2S. Now, for a good chrome finish, the surface needs to be really smooth. So I'm going to be applying an acetone and glazing putty mixture to the surface. The putty is thinned down with the acetone, which gives it a nice, consistent application. It's not going to be thick as to obscure the details. The thinned down putty is applied to the surface using a chip brush and a circular motion to minimize brush strokes. This first layer can then be knocked down using a sanding sponge. It sands really easy, so it does create a lot of dust, so I'll use chip brushes and wet paper towels to remove any excess from the surface. I would also recommend to clean up any excess dust off of the table before moving on to the next step. On top of this, I'm going to be applying a few light coats of Rust-Oleum 2-in-1 filler primer. Again, I'm emphasizing light coats so that I'm not killing my details. After that has been allowed to dry thoroughly, I could then start the wet sanding process, and I'm using some 320 sandpaper. When doing this, you want to do it in a circular motion, and so you don't leave additional striations on the surface. And I'm constantly dipping the sandpaper back into the water to release the particles so it doesn't gum up the grit. Next, I step it up to 1200, which will allow me to sand this to a mirror finish. The chrome application here is a multi-step process. Step 1 is going to be applying a gloss coat to the entire surface. I'm quickly moving around the piece so that I'm not applying too much in one spot because I don't want it to run or drip. And on the can it does say to allow it to dry for 4 days. So after this application, I set it in the corner and moved on to other projects. The chrome is next, and it does have a very wide spray. I would recommend to practice before applying it to your final piece. But it's a really cool process because you're going to apply this paint in a wide arc and then watch it bloom on the surface to get that chrome finish. After 2 more days, the finish is fully cured, and look at that mirror shine. But it's a little too clean, so to match the game, I'm going to be applying some grime and rust. The grime base is going to be made up of some Liquitex Heavy Body Red Oxide and Burnt Umber. This mixture is applied to all the spots where grime and corrosion would build up on a helmet like this. But before I allow the paint to dry completely, I go in with a wet paper towel and I wipe a bunch of it away. This makes sure that the weathering looks a lot more natural. When plotting out my paint, I'll actually set the helmet up and think about where would water or moisture pool. In this case, especially where 2 pieces of metal are coming into contact. And I can even further help this process by going back with a cloth and buffing the surface. This will get rid of any additional water spots or haze left on the surface from the previous step. For detailed areas where I want the rust to stand out, like around the rivets and in the divots, I'm going with a detail brush. The mixture is once again painted onto the surface, but this time with a lot more deliberate application. This is where having references from the game off to the side comes into play, because I can look over to the monitor and make sure that I'm getting close to the source material. And all of this is going to be a good acrylic base for the magic, the dirty down rust. This pigment needs to be mixed thoroughly because once it's applied it has a chemical reaction and actually will mimic the looks of rust. The dirty down itself is somewhat thin and water soluble, so having the acrylics down first does two things. It allows it to look more opaque, but also helps better bind to that glossy surface. And notice that I'm not applying it everywhere and picking specific spots to make the helmet more visually interesting. And being water soluble, I can also go back with a damp brush and make it look as though the rust is running. And with a final buff of the surface, the helmet is ready for display. Another thing to note is that I do not clear coat any of my metallics. They're not really going into battle and shouldn't need it. I also like to let the paint speak for itself versus killing the sheen. This thing has an awesome look to it, and you would never guess that it was just 3D printed. And if you think it looks bright and shiny here in the studio, outside it was absolutely ridiculous. It really starts to get me think about making multiple parts and possibly an entire suit at some point in time, because I will say that this is a fantastic way to make faux armor look the part. So hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial on adding some chrome to your props, and if you are using any of my tips or techniques, be sure to tag me at SKSProps on Twitter and Instagram because I love seeing your creations. Until next time, subscribe and swing back by for the next build.